Now, cultural change is generally regarded as being fairly difficult to do. And a lot of CEOs and boards really don't want to touch it because it's tricky. It's regarded as being tricky, but it's actually not. It's actually very, very simple to do. It takes a lot less time and costs a lot less money to do than most organizations put into as resources into that sort of project. And part of the problem is they treat it as a project. It doesn't work that way. It's a process, and it's a process that unfolds very rapidly if you're hitting the right buttons. You just have to have a process in place that can accelerate with it. It's not disruptive. It actually brings people together very fast so that they work together instead of working in their own little fiefdoms or whatever the case is. You don't have as much conflict anywhere near it. There's a certain point where you change to another level of understanding, another level of energy, and it's usually something that's simpler than what was being done before. Far too many change projects are complex, way too complex, and they're made complex by all the deep thinking that goes around it. You just don't need that. The academic approach generally does not work on these things. It is not a process that is easily analyzed and categorized. It's something that frees people up, and then you direct the energy when the time comes. And that scares the hell out of a lot of people in business. And it means that they think that they don't have any control over it. I mean, what if it goes haywire? And this is a question we often get at the point in an organization where we work with the vision of the organization. The initial part of the vision process is working with the board and the executive team. The executive team, CEO in particular, has to be on board with something like this, or it just won't work. I mean, people will follow what the CEO does no matter what. I mean, if the CEO goes another direction, they'll go another direction because their jobs depend on it. The CEO has to be there, the executive team has to be there. Once we get that initial, I call it an initial or draft vision formulated by them, the crunch point is when we say, okay, now let's take it to all the people and see what they think about this and how they can improve it. And that's where quite often the executive team gets very nervous. They say, well, we've just spent 4 or 5 days working on this to get the strategy right, get the vision right, get the values right, and now you're going to ask all these people what they think. Well, what if they don't like it? What if they want to change it? Well, the answer is simply, if they want to change it and don't like it, they're not going to damn well follow it, and you're not going to have a vision that works, because nobody will want to do it. You've got maybe 10 or 12 people or 20 people at the top who want to do it, but the rest of the people don't want to do it. And you're going to be busting your guts trying to sell it to them, trying to keep them on deck. It'll fail within 3 to 6 months. It's really that simple. It's why most of them fail. But if you take it to the people in the right sort of way and get their input, they'll actually improve it. Without destroying it, they'll actually improve it. And that's part of the process that's involved. And part of that's trust. But part of it is dealing with them in a real way, in an honest way, instead of just dumping stuff on them. Once you get that level of buy-in, it's much easier then to get the deeper level of buy-in and commitment, where people actually start to implement the change themselves further down the track. And that's where this overlay of the master process is particularly useful, because it gives them the tool to actually engage and involve people and collaborate with people in a very effective manner, and to deal with problems as they arise, deal with opportunities, to think outside, not just outside of the box, but to think in a whole different way about the entire business and how it will work better than what it's working at the moment. And that's when you get a transformation of the business. The difference is not just incremental, it can be massive. And it can involve changing the structure, changing the business model. If that's what has to happen to get the business where you want it to be, have the courage to do it. It's not difficult to do if you know how. It's very difficult to do if you don't know how. But the process needs to be simple. It needs to be simple, and it needs to be something that honors people. And that's the most important thing. When you have that, you have the trust within the organization, and you have the engagement of people honestly involved in making this organization part of their own. They'll want to come back. They'll want to do things. They go the extra mile. They love being there. And you'll get the maximum performance from them, because they're working from a point of their own being expressing itself through the business. That's what it's about.